All right, so let's define your target market and let's talk about how to find them on social media. So, in the course section, you'll find a buyer persona worksheet, and once you open up that, you can either print it off and fill it by hand, or if you want to fill it out in Adobe Acrobat, you can do that too. But there's a few different sections. So along the middle, you'll find that there's the demographics. And it's good to map out your buyer personas on a per product basis, on a business basis. Really understanding who your customers are is super important, especially when it comes to running paid traffic, because you want to understand them and what they do, how they think, what their mindset is, in order to be able to let them know and help them to understand why they need your product or service. It also makes it much easier to be able to target and find them online if you've mapped them out, and you can use specific identifiers to be able to target them when running paid traffic. So the first thing that we look at when defining the target market is really looking at the demographics. So is there a particular age range that your buyer persona is? Are they of a specific gender? Do they have children? If they do they have a specific amount? Does that matter in relation to your product or service? What is their occupation? What is their annual income? And what level of education do they have? So those are like basic standard demographics that you're going to want to map out. And sometimes it's relevant and sometimes it's not, but I would definitely try to hone in on a few buyer personas and get super specific. So when you start crafting your marketing messages, you're able to speak specifically to that one buyer persona and then target them and then go on to the next buyer persona, because the type of content and visual graphics that you're going to use doesn't one ad doesn't speak to everyone, and so you need to be creative with who you're talking to, and so that's where mapping out your buyer personas is super important. All right. So the next thing to ask yourself is, what are their challenges and pain points? What is the problem that you're solving? What is their before state? And what are the pain points that they have in their lives? And then looking at goals and values. Do they have specific goals that they're trying to reach? If you're a personal trainer and you know that your buyer persona's goal is to, strengthen their core, that's something that you would want to write down here. Same thing with values. If you know that there is a value that as a whole your target audience believes in, definitely mark that down, because you can align yourself with those values as well. The next section is all about looking at sources of information. This is from books that you know that they read, magazines that they like. Are there specific websites or blogs that they go to for information? Are there conferences that happen every year that they attend? Are there specific gurus or celebrities or public figures that they follow? Or is there other types of information that you know that they, places where they go for information? So mark that down, and then from there, you can look at objections and role in the purchase. And so this is important because if you know what the objections typically are with this buyer persona, then you can mark those down and make sure to be able to speak to those in some way within your copy, whether that's your Facebook ad or on a landing page somewhere. If you know that that is a common objection, then you can speak to that in your copy to kind of hinder those objections while they're making their decision. And then you want to look at what their role is in the purchase. Do they get to make this decision on their own? Do they have to ask someone? Are they in a marriage? Do they have to ask their husband or wife? Do they work in, say, an HR department but need the general manager to approve this purchase? So looking at how this particular buyer persona is involved in the approval and the role in the purchase, understanding that can also help you to craft that right message. Okay, so now that you have your buyer personas mapped out and you understand the marketing mindset, let's jump in, and in the next video, we're going to get started with Facebook ads. See you there.